Today, I'm giving you my feelings about the full-frame Canon 6D DSLR. Before we begin, there are two quick matters to discuss. 1. Don't let anyone on the internet tell you which camera to buy. If someone professes to tell you which is the right camera and the wrong camera, remember that they can't speak for you. You're a smart person, able to absorb information from different sources and make your own judgments. As always, I tell you my experiences, which may or may not be helpful for you. 2. Many of you know me as someone who shoots Nikon most of the time. I approach all brands and cameras with an open mind. It's tough when you're used to one thing and then you pick up something else. There are plenty of reviewers out there who interpret their own preference as a real truth. It may be truth to them, but to you, something quite different may be important. If Nikon folks out there expect me to say, Canon sucks, it's not going to happen. For example, my Canon Rebel T4i is easy and fun to shoot, as are my Nikon bodies. Okay, with that stuff out of the way, let's talk about this camera. First, the exterior. This isn't exactly a first-generation DSLR. This is a full-frame DSLR from the ground up, with most things where Canon shooters expect them to be. For a full-frame DSLR, it's lightweight, sacrificing some of the overall durability and weatherproofing compared to some of the more expensive options. You have buttons here, here, and here. When shooting the camera, I didn't feel overwhelmed with buttons. In fact, I kind of wish that I had just a couple more to make the adjustments that I frequently make from shot to shot. Although, one press of the quick control button and I've got access to most things that I'd need to get to quickly. Speaking of the screen, one surprising omission is a touchscreen LCD, like they have on the most recent Canon Rebel bodies. I realize that we have more buttons here than on the Rebel, but especially when picking up the camera for some casual shooting, a touchscreen would make some of the frequent and even infrequently used settings easier to adjust, and it just seems to be a crowd-pleasing feature. My own personal jury is still out on the control scheme up here on the top. To make some of these adjustments, I have to put one finger here and then move the front dial with another finger. This may be my Nikon habits talking though. If you're thinking about any camera, I always suggest getting the things into your hands prior to purchase so that you can work out details like that. If I find it awkward to make adjustments, I'm not going to like shooting with the camera. The menus are crisp and easy to follow. Most things are where I would expect them to be, even though I don't use Canon as often as I use Nikon. In fact, as someone who knows how to pick up a camera and fast forward my way through the menus, I had the camera set up the way that I wanted it in just a few minutes after taking it out of the box. Some of that was from the Canon experience that I already have. Oh, and you know what else helped? You can download the manual in advance of receiving the camera. Did I read it cover to cover before the camera even got here? Yes, I did. My only gripe about the menus is those darned custom function items, which have extra sort of hidden items. I wish they were incorporated into full menus or that I could at least add them to the My menu. Instead, they're a level back. Of course, they aren't really items that I use often. This is an all-around camera. What do I mean by that? There are cameras with more resolution, faster frames per second, and more buttons all over the place. There are smaller cameras. There are larger cameras. These days, it's tough in the marketplace to stand out as an all-arounder. On the Nikon side, the D600 and D610 suffer a bit from the same fate. Like the D600, the 6D does everything pretty well, but it isn't a standout sports camera or have the most resolution for your next landscape masterpiece. You know what I can call this camera? A shooter's camera. 6D says, pick me up, go to a sporting event, or for a hike, or a museum, or any of the things that you might do, and take photos. In that sense, it's many cameras in one. I did all of my 6D testing with the 40mm pancake lens, and I had a blast. So often we can get hung up on the top specs of the class leaders without considering the fact that a very high percentage of buyers want something that they can grab, maybe even set on an automatic mode, and come home with great photos. You can do all that, or shoot manual, take full control, and come away with great shots too. The key here is the choice to make the 6D the camera that you want it to be, between how you set the camera and your lens collection, all without breaking the bank. On the topic of lenses, there is one important thing to remember. You cannot use the lenses that Canon has optimized for use on cropped sensor bodies with this or any other Canon full-frame body. That means if you're moving to a full-frame Canon from your cropped sensor Canon, you will need new lenses. Coming from a Nikon background where you can use your cropped sensor optimized lenses in a cropped sensor mode on your full frame body, that kind of chafes my hide. I feel like it makes it just a smoother transition when you can use your old lenses. These are great times to be shopping for a full frame DSLR. The 6D is under $2,000 in the US and priced competitively with the Nikon D600. It's not as powerful as the Canon 5D Mark III, but it's much less expensive, and it practically begs you to keep shooting, delivering the tools and capabilities to make it all happen. With the lower price comes a lower specification, 11 autofocus points, while other cameras at this price point and higher often have more. One memory card slot too. If these features are important to you, you may want to look higher up in the Canon range or onto another brand. Did I mention that the 6D has a couple of tricks up its sleeve? You have onboard Wi-Fi and GPS. We all love our phones, and Canon is telling us that it's okay to love your iPhone or Android device. Connect this and this, and you can review images, send them out, or even operate the camera remotely. No special remote required, just your phone and tablet. And the onboard GPS makes geotagging a snap. I hope my Nikon audience isn't too disappointed when I say this, but like my Rebel T4i, you can pick this up and shoot all day. It works, and it works very well. There are a few things I find awkward, but it's still easy to enjoy shooting with this camera. Interested in more details about the specific operation of the camera? I've created a walkthrough video so that you can see how the menus, buttons, and dials are used. As always, leave comments and questions here on YouTube, or find me on Facebook, or send me an email.